Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this second forum. I'm William Marcus. I'm the director of the Broadcast Media Center at the University of Montana, which is home for Montana Public Radio and the Missoula station at Montana PBS. Full disclosure, I'm an employee of the University of Montana. I report to the Vice President for Integrated Communications. Broadcast Media Center operations are a public service of the University of Montana. We are not part of the public relations activities of UM. The University Administration supports and observes a policy of editorial independence for Montana Public Radio and Montana PBS. That said, I am not speaking here on behalf of Montana Public Radio or Montana PBS or the University of Montana. My interest in taking the role of moderator for these forums comes from my experience as a board member of Humanities Montana, a group that fosters and promotes civility in public dialogue. And I ask that you remember that this is not a debate, it's not a deposition, this is not a trial, it's not an election. It's an opportunity to listen to each other. And I'm here to moderate this forum as a civil, constructive venue of ideas and opinions that will help President Engstrom as he decides an issue that will have a long-lasting impact on Missoula. Joining the President on the panel of listeners are Kevin Krebsbach, who is the Associate Director of Planning and Construction at UM Facility Services. Asa Holman is ASUM President. He started his college career in the Culinary Arts program at Missoula College. Sarah Smith is president of Phi Theta Kappa Honors Society, the Missoula College Honors Society. She's studying business and accounting at Missoula College. And Brigitte Freer is a member of the Missoula College Advisory Board and the Business Development Director for the Missoula Economic Partnership. These forums also function as listening and scoping sessions for the Missoula College project as part of any environmental assessment updates or traffic studies that may be required before the construction begins. We'll hear from President Engstrom and then Kevin Krebsbach, who will give an overview of the two sites. There should be at least 90 minutes for comments. Yesterday we heard from more than 20 folks, and here are some of the concerns and topics we heard yesterday. Student housing at the East Broadway site some thought was a better use of that. People were concerned about there being less green space given over, parking lots taking up green space at either location, stormwater runoff, the future growth of the Missoula College, whether UM has the legal right to use the South Campus for building. The South Campus site would encourage communication with high school students. The South Campus is a sacred site, one person said. Another thought it had excellent golf opportunities for kids. Some liked the proximity of the mountain campus to the South Campus. Some thought that we should speak more, or the university should speak more about the phasing of development. Traffic issues on South Avenue and between the South Campus and the Mountain Campus, buses that are out of date. Open space is a Missoula icon. The East Broadway site is dangerous for pedestrians. The South Campus site is a good site, but it would need a circulation road. For the South Campus or for East Broadway, an EIS would be required. The East Broadway site would beautify the riverfront. And the East Broadway site has easy access, so it would be an economic driver for East Missoula and downtown Missoula. And there were some comments about the times that the forums were held. On May 6th, Governor Bullock signed House Bill 5, which included funding for the construction of a Missoula College facility. UM is now preparing to build that facility. Two sites are currently under consideration and are the focus of the forum today. The South Campus UM Golf Course site, and on May 16th, President Ingstrom announced a site on East Broadway as an option to the Montep Center. Fort Missoula and the old Fox Theater sites are not under consideration by the university. UM is looking for a range of comments on the South Campus and the East Broadway sites, so they'll have a full view of what the public sees as issues and topics that need to be addressed regarding each site. Let's hear first from President Ingstrom.
Thank you, William. Good afternoon. Good to see you all here. I see a few repeat faces from yesterday, and thanks for coming back. Look forward to hearing your comments today, and look forward to hearing from those of you who weren't here yesterday as well. We wanted to have this forum in the afternoon at this campus to make sure that we provided a venue appropriate and available to students and faculty here at the Missoula College, as well as people from the community. I want to thank all of you for coming and acknowledge a few people in the room by name. I'm very appreciative, Senator Larson, to have you here today. Cliff Larson over here, and Senator Barrett. I saw you walk in. I don't see you now, but oh, okay. Thanks for coming back today. And I'm very pleased to introduce our newest regent, Regent Fran Albrecht. And Fran, welcome, and welcome to your new job, and thanks for coming today. She already got indoctrinated with a board meeting in Butte the last couple of days, and so we're so delighted that Regent Albrecht was appointed. To have somebody from Missoula on the board is a really important aspect of board membership. So again, thank you all for coming. I'm just going to make a few comments here, and for those of you who were here yesterday or at the forum yesterday, they might sound familiar, so bear with me for a few minutes. And then, as William said, then we'll open it up for questions and discussion. Some of you were in Butte earlier in the week with me and others from the university at Senator Baucus's Economic Development Summit. It was a really stimulating few days, and the message that came through from just about every keynote speaker, speakers who are CEOs of companies like Boeing and Google, Facebook, and Ford Motor Company, one of the consistent themes that they spoke to was the importance of higher education in developing Montana's economy. And furthermore, many of them spoke specifically to two-year education as a vehicle that puts people directly into the workforce and prepares them for the kinds of jobs that these large companies are going to have available both in Montana and outside of Montana. So the message was very clear that higher education, and specifically two-year education, is a critical component of our development of both in an economic sense, but also a quality of life sense here in Montana. The entire Montana university system has been working for several years now to strengthen two-year education. And so we started out several years ago with a grant from something called the Lumina Foundation, a multi-million-dollar grant to really increase the visibility of two-year education and to make sure that our two-year institutions around the state are most effectively able to deliver on their mission. And I'll come back to that mission in just a few minutes. Just 2 days ago at the Board of Regents meeting, we heard a tremendous announcement that the Department of Labor just awarded a $25 million grant to the state of Montana to further develop two-year education. So our two-year units here, the Missoula College and the Bitterroot College, are integral to that $25 million project that will play out over the next several years. And so that will bring new funds to programmatic development in specific areas at our two-year colleges. That was a tremendous announcement to be able to hear just the other day, and we're so pleased that that means two-year education is going to strengthen even further. If you look back over the last decade or so in the Montana university system, the real growth, the bulk of the growth in that system has actually been at the two-year level. So as most of you know, we obtained funding from the legislature this last session in the amount of $29 million to build a new Missoula College. The expectation is that will be matched by $3 million of non-state funding, non-tuition funding. And so Senator Larson, Senator Barrett, since you're here, I want to extend my sincere thanks to both of you for your leadership and to the entire legislature for their work in making this new building possible. let's all keep in mind that regardless of what you think about the location and regardless of the controversy around that, this is a 100% positive development for our students and faculty at the Missoula College, to give them a new facility to educate next generations of students in two-year education is something that is absolutely critical to us. So as much as we might have discussion about where we're locating this college, let's all keep in mind the absolutely positive development that this thing represents, that this new college represents. The mission of two-year education in the state of Montana has been defined by the Board of Regents, our governing body. And so all of the two-year schools within the regental system are working to fulfill 5 prongs of this mission. So I'd like to just review those with you for a moment if I could. One is transfer education. So this is the idea that a student can come to a two-year college and get started in education and then transfer from there to a 4-year institution to complete the education. And Asa here is a prime example of exactly that, and maybe he'll speak to that a little bit later in the session. Secondly, workforce development through the certificates and the applied Associate of Science degrees that are offered at the Missoula College and the other two-year colleges. Those are degrees that put people directly into the workforce. After 1 year or 2 years, a person can come out of high school or come out of previous employment, get retooled or learn a trade, and go right into the workforce. So these are programs like diesel mechanics or welding or construction or nursing or surgical technology or pharmacy technology or computer technology. Things that are very workforce oriented, and it takes a minimum amount of time and a very cost-effective way to get an education. A third aspect of the mission of two-year colleges in Montana is developmental education. That is, many of our students come out of high school not quite ready for college, particularly in the areas of mathematics or writing. Or people may be out of high school for some number of years and decide they want to come back to college and realize that they're not quite up to speed on college level math and so on. So the two-year colleges are charged with delivering developmental education programs that really get people ready to do college level academic work. Lifelong learning is another aspect of the mission of our two-year institutions, offering courses and programs so that people can come back at any stage of life, pick up a course here and there, or pick up a new program to, again, retool perhaps, and so on. So lifelong learning is something that our folks think about in detail all the time. Community development is another aspect of the role of our two-year colleges, making sure that our community is a vibrant place to live and work by offering special programs, sometimes non-credit instructional offerings available to people. So community development is another important part. Our Missoula College, our two-year school here at the University of Montana, excels in these. I'm so proud of the faculty and the students and the leadership here at the Missoula College. Let me just give you a few bullet points that reflect the success that they do. The nursing program here a few years ago accredited. They have a 100% pass rate for the national licensure examination, and they have a 100% employment rate upon graduation. We're very proud of the nursing program and the faculty here. Our culinary students, the students who learn how to prepare food and how to run businesses associated with food, placed with a bronze medal in the American Culinary Federation regional competitions recently. Another outstanding program. Our energy technology program had a 100% pass rate for the students who took the North American Board Certified Energy Practitioners exam. There are many things like this that I could go on, but the point is, this is a quality operation. These folks pay close attention to excellence in education, and they are very focused on student success. Now we're faced with this wonderful opportunity to build a new facility for the Missoula College, and where do we put it? So I want to outline the criteria that I am thinking and that we are using to make this decision. So one of those, one aspect of those criteria, proximity to the university's main campus. We want to make sure that we can deliver shared services to our students in a cost-effective manner. And so proximity to the main campus, reasonable proximity to the main campus is one criteria. An attractive setting that reinforces the importance of two-year education. We want to make sure that our students and our faculty feel like they are valued, they have a beautiful building, they have a beautiful facility in which they can learn and work. Clearly, access to transportation, parking, and so on is a pragmatic aspect of where we put this building, and we need to make sure that we put it in a place where traffic patterns work for us and that there's ample parking available. Another consideration has to do with future expandability. 10 years from now or 20 years from now, the enrollment at the Missoula College may be 4,000 or 5,000 students, and we need to have the flexibility so that we can expand this physical facility at some point if we need to. So that's an important consideration as well. And finally, a location that contributes to the strength of our community. The University of Montana is an integral part of Missoula and vice versa. This is a relationship that's one of the best university-community relationships around. I'm not saying it's perfect and it's not without the occasional point of friction. When you look at the support that Missoula gives the university and vice versa, it's a great relationship. And we want to do everything we can to promote that relationship and continue to strengthen both the vibrancy and the beauty of our overall university campus. Now, I'm aware that either site that we end up choosing here will have some challenges and opportunities, special opportunities associated with either site. Both of them have some programmatic merits. Both of them have some difficulties associated with that particular site, and that's what we're here to listen to today, to get your ideas, your concerns, your constructive comments about either site and how we might best place this building. So I'm very interested in hearing from you, and mostly what we'll do is listen. We will answer to the best of our ability any questions that you bring forward. And so with that, I want to say again, thanks for coming today, and thank you to the members up here that are going to help with the discussion. So with that, William, should we turn it over to Kevin, or do you want to?
After yesterday's forum, some people approached me as to ask essentially, what difference does a forum like this make? What's the point? And I wanted to ask you, President Engstrom, how will you use these comments in your decision making? Is your mind already made up? And if so, what would you need to hear today to change your thinking or to reconsider your options?
Okay, well, let me take the second question first because it's sort of paramount, I guess, to answer the other two. Is my mind already made up? It is not. We have two viable sites on the table, South Campus and East Broadway. And again, both of them present unique opportunities and distinctive challenges as well. And I'm here to listen to what your thoughts are related to those challenges. This is not a done deal. The decision is not made. And I will make it after we receive the comments from you today. So over the course of the next several days to weeks, we will synthesize everything that we hear at these forums and bring that in together with the other information we have before us from our architects, from our own considerations, from the administration on campus and at Missoula College. Synthesize all of that together and make a decision. It is not a done deal. So, to that end, I sincerely want to hear what you have to say. I know that some of you have indicated that you don't think I listen to you. I do listen to you. I may not agree with everything that you say, but I am listening, and we are listening intently. And so please genuinely tell us what your concerns are, what you see as the advantages or disadvantages of either site. Is there any one thing that you can say today that will sway the decision one way or another? I can't really give an answer to that. This does not hinge on any one particular factor. It's a big decision. There are many moving parts to it, and we'll do the best we can to integrate and synthesize all that information into a final decision.
Thank you. Kevin, you want to give us an overview, please?
Sure. Before I start, I'd like to there. She's I'd like to say, excuse me, the president asked me a couple of weeks ago at a meeting what I thought about each site, and I thought, as an architect, both sites are outstanding sites for this facility. There's some challenges and strengths to each one, but of all the sites that we've looked at, these are by far the two best sites for this facility. The other thing I'd like to stress is that a few years ago, we adopted a LEED Silver minimum for campus. That's leadership and environmental and energy design is what LEED is. And that process is a pretty hard process to get through and get a certification for a building. Our first building as a LEED Silver minimum went platinum, which is the highest you can get. So I'm confident that we can go through this process and get an outstanding facility. The process involves a lot of planning and collaborative process with the committee that we would be working with, it was the users group or the building committee. All our design professionals were collaborative in this process. And then we also take the public into consideration of what their concerns are with the site, with the facility, and the type of activities that take place. So I'm just going to go through and read what LEED version 4, that's some of the steps that we have to go through before I show you the two sites. So the first one is location and transportation. So transportation is definitely addressed in the LEED process. How you get to the site, how you exit the site when you get there, how the parking is involved in the site. So the next one is sustainable sites. So you got to protect that site when you're there. And it's required that you take pollution, stormwater drainage, all that into consideration when you're designing this facility. So we will be sensitive to both sites, either one that we select. On all our sites on campus actually get that consideration. Water efficiency, we collect stormwater, we make sure where the water goes after it rains. It's not going to pollute the river in the case of East Broadway or be detrimental to the neighborhood in the case of South Campus. So those kind of issues are all addressed in this collaborative design process. Energy and atmosphere, there's 4 requirements that you have to pass to get certified, which is basically the minimum is certification. Silver's a couple steps ahead of that, and platinum's the highest you can go. So we finally verify that the building's going to function and be commissioned, it'll be run as designed. It's got a higher energy performance than the normal building. They use ASHRAE standard to evaluate that. So it will be, and Native American is our most efficient building on campus. That's the one that's a LEED Platinum building, is our most efficient building on campus. It's been proven that that process works. We meter all our buildings, and then we have refrigerants, so we don't use any toxic materials in our, or gases in our HVAC systems. Material and resources, that's considered before you get your materials. You try to get local materials so you're not trucking materials from the East Coast to the site. And how you take care of materials, you try to limit waste. It's very, very stringent on how you keep that in order. And then environmental air quality, that's all considered into the process too, so that when the building's done, you get the freshest, cleanest air you can possibly get. The paints that you use in the carpets aren't off-gassing, so it's all important consideration. I'm just saying this because it's a stringent process to get a LEED Silver minimum. And it involves all the concerns that I've heard in some of these meetings over the last few years on, parking, lighting, and then of course we're going to take the concerns from the EA. This is a scoping meeting, so we're listening. I'm writing down all the things that you guys have concerns about. Because when we built Lewis and Clark, there was concerns that when we parked our cars in the parking lot, that the lights would go into the neighborhood. So we built berms, if you notice, along Higgins Avenue. There's berms and landscaping that alleviate that issue. So we do listen. Dr. Lewis and Clark was a very successful project after we got done and addressed your concerns, and we incorporated most of those into the design. So at this point, I'd like to just go, I'm going to step back behind Carrie over there so you guys can see what I'm pointing to here. Sorry, I won't get in your way here. So the two sites, East Broadway is on the left, and of course the South Campus one's on the right. And the one on the right is actually the document that was produced by the South Campus Master Plan. It's not the current one that Mark Henley has designed. He brought some landscape site designers in from Colorado, and they've taken this document and improved it in my eyes. So, if you look at the two sites, you can see South Campus is up at the top right, and the East Broadway site's down on in the corner down here. So this is the East Broadway site, 7.2 acres. This property is 210 acres of all what's holding this county as South Campus. Now, there were some concerns in our meeting yesterday that we were on a thoroughfare that was dead end. It does dead end there, but if you look at the main roads that come up to that area, Arthur Avenue, Higgins, South, 39th, as you go back, there's a lot of ways to get off of that site. So it's not like you drive down there, have to turn around and come back. You can go down Arthur to get to campus, go across the bridge in our new configuration that helped fix this site that was a big issue. Now you can go over this and go over that bridge. So those are the sites that. So we revisited the project program when we met go to the legislature. And Mark Henley talked with the users, and it's been determined that 155,000 gross square feet would be adequate to house any programs for the foreseeable future. So that's the size of the facility that would ultimately build out there on either site that we can see now. The LEED Gold certification is Mark's goal. We're going to try for platinum, but as an architect, he thinks he's very comfortable in getting a LEED Gold certification for this facility. The facility will accommodate all the programs, 33 classrooms, you can read all that stuff. That's the project program that we revisited before we went to the last legislature. So this is the South Campus build out. This is if it was totally built out, and this might take 50 years to get there. The first portion of this is coming in off of the South Avenue here, in between the golf cart storage building and the clubhouse. That drive would be the way we would access the site. The site for the Missoula College would be this, plus the parking. Now, parking will be a huge issue on either side. The city code says that for every 3 students you have in that facility, you have to have 1 space of parking. So right now, the enrollment's around 2,300 area, I think, something like that. So we would have to have a lot of cars, 700 cars plus. So that will be a huge impact. Now, we're going to address that by putting landscape and islands and things like that to kind of shield it from this facility in this scenario, and the same thing for the East Broadway site. So, but in phase 1 of this build out on South Campus would include the Missoula College and the associated parking. Now the total build out again, there's some misconception that there won't be any open space. There's a huge area of open space allocated in the master plan for a big park area down here. Of course, this is what replicates the oval in essence on this side, and Mark says it's 100 feet by 300 feet. It'll be green space quad. It's not an oval, it's a quad, which all these academic buildings will ultimately be built around at some time in the future. This vista from here, looking up, he was talking about an amphitheater and some other amenities in there. But you can see there's ample green space in this build out that will take many, many years to all the green areas from the playing field to be retained. There'll be additional playing fields here, additional housing. I mean, this is going to take a considerable amount of time to build out. But if we do choose this site, this will be the anchor starting this off. And that's what it looks like in the color. So you can see there's a large amount of green space and open area retained in this solution. I think some previous public forums, they had what they would like to see on this site, and this is just a listing of some of the activities they would like to see on this site, which someone mentioned yesterday that a lot of people like to cross-country ski there in the wintertime. That will still be possible. I'm not so sure about where all the horseshoe pits and all the tennis, all that kind of stuff would go, but it's possible with that. This is the approach to the site off South Avenue. Like I say, if you look behind this grass area, that's where the golf cart storage building is, and the clubhouse is down here. So this will be the street as you're going in to get into the campus. This is the Camp Vista looking east. And that's going south. That's from the mountain looking down on the site of the Missoula College. Now the East Broadway site, if people aren't familiar with it, it's right across the river from the stadium. There's a nursing home facility here. This is our existing park and ride. Montech sits here. There's some storage buildings there. Now to get the 700 parking stalls that are required by city code, we'd have to lease some of this area along the north side of East Broadway to get additional parking along there. And we're in the process of submitting an application to get considered for that lease. We have all the documentation put together, so we're ready to send it. The floodplain is about right along this edge. On the next slide, you'll see that. Over the years, the building construction on campus was using this to put all their fill in. So the nice thing about this site is that the opportunity for a full daylight basement is there. We could do a full walkout basement on this site with 4 stories above it, and even go to 5. And we're not limited by stories. We could go to 8 by city zoning ordinances, but I'm not sure that we're going to do that. So, but there is an easement in here to gain access to this sewer pump station for the city. We have our park and ride there. That's 242 cars, I think it is. And we would configure this so that these parking spaces would be retained by the college. We'd move probably our park and ride further down so that the buses coming from campus could drop students off and then easily get back on East Broadway and come back to campus. There's mention of a design of a footbridge that would go right across this area right here. And that's something that is still in consideration. It's not in this project at this time, but it is being considered. So it's a larger view of it, and it's a spectacular site. When I show you some of the other vistas from this site, it is not 200 acres like the South Campus, but this site is adequate for the future expansion of this facility to meet that program I showed you previously. This will accommodate that 155,000 gross square feet plus additional room to grow. So, all the utilities are to this site. Like I mentioned before, sewers right here. There's major power in the area, water and natural gas. So all the utilities are already stubbed into this facility. Now this looks like a sea of parking, but if you look at it, it's almost bisected equally with green space. So yeah, there is a lot of parking associated with this facility, but there is also a lot of green space. And visually, the river will become part of that. So it won't be as impacted on as it looks on a plan when you actually build out here. This is a riparian area that by LEED standards we'd have to repair and keep. So that's where I would say that then we'd have a walkout basement out here that would look across the river and incorporate all that into the site considerations. This is the vista from that area. It's just pointing to across the river. It's another slide of Mount Jumbo on the other side. Now we're hoping at some point that we're not going to go that many stories here. So this view will not be impacted from anybody, because no one's on Mount Jumbo right now. So. And then Mark Yedley was talking yesterday that having a riverfront is a unique opportunity for an architect to do, a river walk down there, have lots of activities on that site. So it is a great opportunity for that site to do something very special for the community. These are just additional ideas that he garnered together and put together in this slide. So that's all I have.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I did notice that when you described the common area, you said it was 100 feet by 300 feet. I understand it's 100 yards by 300 yards.
Yes.
I'd like to open the forum for comments. Please use this microphone since this event is being recorded by the media. If you are a member of a group of speakers, please try not to repeat the same topic. You can say, I agree with the previous speaker, and add something new. That way we can hear from more people in this conversation. I have a stopwatch here. I'll ask you, and I will try to keep track, to give you about 2 minutes, 3 minutes at the most. You can also provide written questions. There are pencils and paper over there, and those will be collected at the end of this event. You can also leave questions by email at buildmc@umontana.edu. buildmc@umontana.edu. And if you go to the website for the Missoula College Project, which is the university's website, umt.edu/buildmissoula college, there's a frequently asked questions document there that answers questions that have been brought up in previous forums. And all questions that are gathered by our note taker here, or the questions that you leave, will be answered on the website as soon as possible. So please identify yourself and any affiliation you wish to share, and tell us what street you live on. I live on Jackson Street.
I'm Senator Dick Barrett, and I live on Agnes Avenue. I have two questions that arose as a result of the comments that I heard earlier today. One is that if the city did not have the requirement for one parking space per 3 students, I believe that's what you said, would it be possible to reduce the amount of parking at any of these sites and replace it with some other transit, mix of outlying parking lots, any other kind of arrangement? Has that possibility been contemplated? Or are we stuck with what the city tells us that we have to do in the way of parking? That's one. And the second question I have is this, that yesterday there was some concern expressed about the idea that this site was originally intended for, or being looked at as a place for new student housing. I was struck by the fact that the South Campus does not include the exits. Is there any possibility of constructing student housing, particularly in the location of the exits? My impression is that those buildings are very old, very outmoded, very energy inefficient, and that it might be appropriate at some point to replace them. And if they could be replaced with higher density student housing, would that make it possible then to add some student housing and still have this site available without sacrificing the opportunity for student housing? Thank you.
Sure. On the parking issue, we are exempt from zoning as a campus here. All the campuses in the university system are exempt from the local zoning requirements. We do have to go to the Board of Adjustments to, at least that's what the statute says. We have to present our case on why we want to deviate from the zoning. So we're not required to do that. That being said, we have 400 stalls out here around this facility for the students, and it's really hard to find one. If you ever come here during the day, you will find most students drive here, because I believe a lot of the students that are here in the audience have jobs and they leave and come back, and they need their vehicle during the day to probably, I don't know if that was your case, but we do like to have multimodal transportation. Nancy Wilson is a proponent of that. Our bus system is very successful. We do endorse the biking to campus. We like people that walk to campus. We like people that car share. So yes, the answer to that is we will encourage all of that on either side. So, but we'd have to look at strongly at if we can deviate from the local zoning on that issue.
The exits.
Yeah, so let me take on the access question.
They're leveraged out to 2024.
Let me try to answer the question first. So, Senator Barrett, at some point, the X's clearly have to be replaced. They are actually fairly popular now because they're inexpensive, but they're not really up to what people expect in living quarters today. So at some point, we will tear down the X's and replace them. That we are kind of thinking in terms of the long term for residence halls and so on, and that is a good location for housing. I don't think that it's a feasible location for Missoula College. If we have difficulty with parking and transportation and so on the South Campus, I think that would be only amplified in the location where the X's are. If we do not use the East Broadway site, that site is a candidate for housing development. And you may know that we were talking earlier in the year with a possible public-private partnership about that possibility. And so, you know, that would be in the mix of things in the long term if we indeed build the Missoula College on the South Campus. The South Campus itself certainly is a candidate for further growth in student housing. Most of what, between the athletic field and so on there, the rest of what we have developed on South Campus is in fact student housing, tourism park and all of that. So clearly the long-term view of South Campus includes housing development, includes athletic recreational development, and it includes academic research development. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bite.
It's okay, go ahead. You're anxious. Thank you, panel. Thank you, Mr. Marcus. And when are you going to start producing more back roads of Montana? Is what I would, because we really, really like those.
Thank you.
Originally, the legislature gave you money to consolidate the campuses from being spread out into one area. And in the late beginning of the 2007-ish, I can't remember. There was a study done with 9 sites, and it picked the Ford site as the best, and the athletic field site as the worst. Why have you taken the West Campus off the table when you could consolidate the whole Missoula College out there? You already know that well over 80% of the students use their cars and do work, so it really wouldn't be that much more difficult. And have you talked to the county about the fairgrounds and possible expansion?
Yeah, thanks for the question. The Fort Missoula site is off the table for us because it simply does not meet that criteria of reasonable proximity to the main campus. I know there are different philosophies out there about this, but the fact is that the direction of two-year education in the state of Montana, under the authority of the Board of Regents, is moving toward greater integration, not greater segregation. And so it is our philosophy of education that to provide the most cost-effective delivery of that education and provide the most opportunities for our students, that the concept of proximity and integration is an important one. And Fort Missoula simply does not meet that. In addition, the Fort Missoula site would be considerably more expensive to develop. There isn't really the infrastructure available west of Reserve Street that we would need to have. But primarily, this is as much a philosophical approach as anything. We believe that the direction of education is to do a better job with cost effectiveness and integration, and not to separate the two-year students out at some remote location. Thank you.
What about the fairgrounds?
The fairgrounds, we have looked at in a conceptual way. I mean, the fact is we own land free and clear on the South Campus, and we own land free and clear on East Broadway, and And given the combination of that fact with the proximity to campus, the two sites that we have are way preferable to a more remote site.
I'm a little nervous at this. This is my first time doing this. My name is Mary. I'm a student here at Missoula College. And I wanted to ask you a question first before I say anything. The East Broadway, how close is that to businesses? Is it far from it?
From businesses?
Yes.
Well, it's pretty close to downtown. I mean, it's, down businesses
Well, the
start.
reason I ask you that is because what I'm concerned of is the homeless people, like the drunks, because I've seen them down there. And my husband and I took our dogs for a walk one morning, and we see broken liquor bottles everywhere. There was blood everywhere. And since then, my husband and I are too afraid to walk down there on that walk by the river. We're too afraid to go down with our dogs now because of that. And I'm just wondering, if you build that building on East Broadway, what is that going to bring up there, is what I'm concerned about. More business, more bars, that's what I'm worried about. And another thing I wanted to ask you is, if you built on the college, university, is there any possible way by the law here, can you build the parking lot as 2 stories to give more access to parking?
There's nothing that prevents us from building a multi-story.
Because then you won't have to take up so much land if you build them like, first floor, second floor, third floor, however your law requires that you can do it, which would give more parking to the students.
There's nothing that prevents us from building a multi-story parking lot or parking structure other than cost. They're not inexpensive to build.
Right.
And aesthetics, some people don't like the looks of it. But I mean, that's certainly a consideration to make.
And it would take up less land also.
It would, yes, right, to get the same number of spots, that's correct.
But East Broadway concerns me very much, especially if you also built a dorm down there too. What about the female students?
You raise a very good point, and no matter where this building gets located, campus safety is paramount to us, and we've worked very hard on that in recent times, and so you can be assured that regardless of the location of this facility, we will take all appropriate measures for lighting and our police force patrolling.
Yeah, because
and
the
things
more
like that.
people you are there at the college or dorm, whatever you decide to build there, your people, other people are gonna come down and say, oh, there's a lot of people, hey, we're gonna come down this way. And it's very uncomfortable to me, it really is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
My name is Jeremy Hackney. I'm a student here at college. I'm also employed tomorrow, actually, as Vice President of our Credit Capital Honor Society here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I do want to take a quick moment for thank you for coming down here. One of my big concerns really about this whole project is it really feels like a lot of the student voices haven't had an opportunity to come out and speak. I know that there's been lots and lots of forums. A lot of times they're during times or at places that we don't have necessarily the greatest access to. So I thank you very much for coming down here. Few concerns that I do have. Biggest concern, obviously, we need to go ahead and have a new facility. I mean, anybody here can walk around this facility and realize that it's not conducive to a great learning environment with some of the problems that are here with this building. Not necessarily that it can't make it, but it makes it difficult. So I do want to go ahead and agree with you with saying that this is a huge ordeal going ahead and getting this new facility and helping progress the distribution. As far as the Broadway location, the concern that I have is expansion. I know that we can have a multi-story building in that location. However, who knows, in 20, 30 years, we might need even more space than what that land might be able to hold. Safety, again, with what you were speaking of, as far as a lot of the things that go down on those, happen on those particular trails down there, can be concerning for a lot of people. With the parking and really having it on the opposite side of Broadway, there need to be some sort of way for our students to be able to cross that location without having put their safety in jeopardy to do so. And there is not a lot of options that I can particularly foresee right now to be able to do that. I do think that the South Campus seems to be the better idea at this particular point in time. We have the space. It's there for benefiting Missoula College or University of Montana students and faculty, and I think that that's going to be a much better use of our time and money to go ahead and develop that area, going ahead and getting those facilities in place that we need to, and being able to have that ability of expanding if we need to as well. So I did want to go ahead and just make that statement, so thank you for listening.
So I've already spoken to the panelists yesterday, so I'm going to speak to the audience. My name is Renee Mitchell. I'm very concerned about the destruction of a golf course because I think, one, it's going to be illegally done. It's over a technicality. This came out last year. I suppose it was in November. When I was talking about the director of what they call the South Campus Master Plan, I've never heard of the South Campus until the university wanted to start building on that land with buildings. But the land itself was purchased by alumni who stayed around town back in the 20s and could see the future need for athletic fields and intramural purposes. They had a huge bond drive, they collected money, they bought that parcel of land. It was about 160 acres. I know there's more above the hill, but, and they kept that and used it. We even had veteran housing on that at one time. You know, when the veterans housing was moved, the land was used for the golf course. The people who built the golf course, they didn't just go out and get a big loan and build it. Every year, and I've been in the archives and I've done a lot of research, every year they would do a few improvements and they would get money, revenues from the golf course. Used to be able to play 9 holes for 25 cents in the 30s. That was a lot of money for people. They weren't able to even sink a well until 1957 because they were just going along. They weren't going into debt. Like, I mean, it's real easy to go into debt now for college and buildings and education, and then you're digging yourself out of a hole for the rest of your life. They painstakingly put this together. There are plans for 9 more holes. They'll never happen because of the student housing that was built around that. So of the 160 acres, there's approximately that 55 left that is used by kids, students, adults, senior citizens. It's a major recreational area, and it's not just a golf area, but we run track meets there. People walk their dogs. It's just a wonderful open space. We asked the city and the county for open space bonds, and we're paying $10 million over years to buy open space. This is actually open space that generates revenue for the university, anywhere from $40,000 to $80,000 a year that they make over and above all their expenses goes back to the university. Now, to build on that land, one, the university says, well, there's no deed restriction on it. However, it was very clear that when this land was turned over at way less than market value, that the use was to be for athletic and intramural purposes. We're asking that you just leave the last 1/3 of it, because the university's already taken the other 2/3 of it. For some reason, the plan out west was chopped off by President Denison in 2004 after the dean of the college had studied 9 different sites in town. He had a committee of over 70 people, and they studied 9 different sites and came up with that West Campus site. In 2007, money was appropriated to do a study to consolidate the campus.
Ms. Missoula, would you take one more minute, please?
Yeah, I'll try to do it in 1 minute, but I've listened to you guys for 30 times now, talking about how we're gonna do one side or the other. And I lost my train of thought. Can I start my memory over? Anyway, we've had a series of forums that the university chose to boycott 2 of them, although I think they might have listened to them on MCAP. But one of the representatives made a good point. He said the Montana University system campuses, including UM, MCUM, are public institutions. They belong to the public, and they are managed by the Board of Regents and their administrators. We need public support. This is the most divisive thing this university has ever done. And if you were to put this in your Montana magazine and let people know, it goes out to all the alums throughout this country, I would be shocked if you didn't hear a huge, huge reverberation. 90% of the people who come to Missoula College use their automobiles. Imagine when this thing grows to 4,000. You're going to grow. You're going to grow, and we're going to see brick and mortar universities shrink because of our technology.
Could you wrap up?
We haven't even
please?
addressed the
Ms.
technology.
Mitchell, could you wrap up, please?
Now I'm going to wrap up, and I think you're failing to turn over a 4-leaf clover if you don't look at the fairgrounds or the West Campus. And I thank the people for coming, and I thank the people who have supported us, and I thank the over 6,000 people who have signed petitions, and I know we could gather 6,000 more in a short time.
Thank you.
I'm Carmelita Bullock, B-U-L-O-C-K. I'm a retired teacher, and I'm very active in the Western Montana Retired Educators Association. And we get a lot of questions about why are we funneling everybody into college and we're losing people in the workforce, we're losing our life skills people. I wanted to tell you a little bit though about when they built the Big Sky High School. The idea was that they would put it out there, and of course they have buses and cars and vehicles, and then across the highway was the ag. And we had the FFA, we had the forestry school. There's nothing but land out there, there's nothing much on it, except, well, I had pig barns and a few things like that. But across the highway from the Big Sky High School, the people that started out there, we taught basic courses, business, vocational, but we also taught basic English and that type of thing. So that just a little bit, enough so these students could kind of go that direction towards VOTEC. Well, they decided that wasn't quite the way to go. That's what happens over the years. So what they did was they created Big Sky High School. And it's been fairly successful, I think. And they have built on, it's gotten bigger and more effective. And we still have that great big piece of land over there across that I understand was a plan for the university, for the VOTEC. Well, the VOTEC, of course, originally was the high school. It did not belong to the university. But now, of course, the university is in charge of that. But still, the land is there. And the big buildings are there. And I just don't understand what has happened. Because the South Campus, the golf course is a green space. We're always paying money to buy open spaces. And we talked to PTA in the 60s about the green belt. Hawaii was working on it. We were so proud of ourselves. We had green belt. We had the campus, and we were doing such a good job. And that was a long time ago. Now you're going to destroy the green belt you've already got, and then they're going to put out more money to buy more. And it just isn't making sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
afternoon. See if I can get that to stay still. My name is Sue Bradford. I am an instructor here at the College of Technology, as well as the four-year campus. I find the jobs to be highly compatible, as a matter of point. I guess I would call on the public to remain focused on the question at hand, and I would like to address a couple things. First, I'd like to thank everyone for creating a better opportunity for the students and the people who work over here, faculty and staff, to feel like we actually have a voice in all this. I mean, I look around and I hear some of you from the neighborhoods around the golf course and elsewhere that I've seen at many, many other meetings saying pretty much the same thing. And I appreciate that many of you are still attached to the Ford idea. But as an educator and as a citizen, I would really like us to take seriously the priority of getting something built to enable the young people in Missoula to have choices to pursue effectively two-year education as well as four-year education. And I think that really takes precedence over the location issue in a lot of ways. I have reached the point in this where really, you know, I'm sensitive to my students, many of who have said they really like the South Campus idea, the green space. There's something about the aesthetics of thinking and having space in which to think, where the narrow canyon maybe appeals to us rather differently. But on the other hand, the infrastructure concerns in the canyon have some advantages. And I think both sides have trade-offs on that level. But really, at the end of the day, I'm concerned as an educator for, do my students have what they need to achieve their goals and obtain the education that our society, our community, our state needs them to move forward with. And that includes many different skills. Traditionally, two-year education has included 2 tracks. We're not changing this into a prep school. There has been 2 elements of two-year schools. One has been career-focused 2-year certificates and degrees, and the other has been what we call the Associate of Arts degree, which is not a new invention. It's been around for generations. The idea of a 2-year degree that's essentially a liberal arts degree and often a transfer degree, as students who realize as the doors of education open for them, they may have gone through high school with weak academic experiences, or they may have gone into some career that turned out to, I don't know, change and go away. There's so many technological changes and our economy is evolving rather quickly.
Could you bring us back to the sites?
Yes, I will. That at the end of the day, it's important that we choose a site and do not get overly sidetracked into debating all the possibilities that could have happened over the last 10 years. And the 2-year education is a unique animal. I don't think there's a massive conspiracy on the part of the university to pull one over on the public. In fact, as public citizens, we have an obligation to resolve this and choose the best possible site and state our preferences. For the record, my preference is to get this done and to beg my fellow citizens to stay focused on this issue, as I'll try to as well, and basically give us a home. Please give us a home. Let's lay down the Ford idea. Let's focus on one of these 2 things. And at the end of the day, life's full of trade-offs. I love open space, but I'd rather see green trees than pavement any day. But on the other day, I see that society has needs, and we've got to put this somewhere for the sake of the future and the next generation.
Thank you, Ms.
So let's go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Braxton.
My name is Christy Ann Brown. I teach communications here at Missoula College, and I'm really happy to see everyone here today participating in this process. So I'd like to thank everyone for being here and giving everyone this opportunity to discuss the issues. I am a native of Missoula, Montana, and I went to Cold Springs, Meadowville, Sentinel High School. Right over here, I remember when this building was built. what I'm hearing over and over is that we have these different locations, and each one has issues. It's become very contentious. So it would be nice if we could figure out a way in which we could create less contention. I'm hoping that we can do this quickly, as Sue mentioned, because the students do need a new building, as do I, because I teach here. One thing that happened yesterday at the meeting at the Holiday Inn was a point was brought up that the mayor's office was interested in proposing a third location. And I'm curious as to if that location would be as contentious as the other 3 locations that in the history of Missoula have come up. Being a native of Missoula, I remember when I thought the community college was going to be placed over by Big Sky High School, where there are 2 buildings. But I realized that's not on the table, and we need a building. So what are we going to do? And why can't we entertain the possibility of creating goodwill between economic development in Missoula and the mayor's office and the university? Because in all the years that I've lived in Missoula, that's always been a schism. Wouldn't it be great if this administration could work to mend that schism? Why should there be that schism? This is a vocational school. We could be placed downtown, across from the hospital. We have a nursing program, a lot of med tech programs. We could be near restaurants. Our culinary school would do well there. There would be parking. We could enter into a really new dynamic between Missoula City and the University of Montana, which has never been present. I've lived here longer than probably most of you. Maybe some of you are natives. Asa, are you?
I am, yes.
Yeah. So I was born at St. Pat's, and my personal choice is that we would entertain a dialogue, some rhetoric with Mayor Ingen, and we would consider a 4th location and do it very fast. As Sue said, we need a new building. And we would enter into a new era of good relations with the city of Missoula and the University of Montana.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm told Isaac, I spoke yesterday. But in the interest of respecting William's 2-minute time restraint, I shortened my comments. I thought I'd come back to them. And this ties in with what Christiane said. And you heard me speak about the triangle and why I think Mayor is. You can't hear me? Okay. Okay, sorry. I think Christiane's comment about the triangle is important because the mayor has genuinely put forward a very, very powerful and very, very compelling proposal. Today I'd like to speak to you in connection with that, with a document that was created and signed by the mayor and the former ASU president, Zach Brown and Royce. It's called the Community Quality of Life Initiative. You all saw this in the newspaper, I think, or many of you. It's called the Memorandum of Understanding. The document, I'm going to focus on just a few lines to keep this within the 2 minutes. And the things I think that are most cogent. Further, the city, and I'm abbreviating this a little bit, further, the city and the university will commit to a joint long-term planning process for facilities and infrastructure of mutual interest. Continuing the quote, specifically, the University of Montana and the city through this memorandum established the following goals. And in the interest of brevity, I'll read the first goal. Work with the development community and appropriate partners to break ground on 1,000 units of safe, affordable housing appropriate for students and proximate to the University of Montana and downtown Missoula. Newly constructed units will be opened and rented within 2 years of the date of this memorandum. The memorandum, again, was signed December 10, 2012. We're crowding 1 year early. Okay. Following this list of other goals, I'm going to also quote, to move forward on these goals, the in this agreement will establish an advisory committee with membership representing the city, university, ASUM, and community stakeholders, close quote. I'll mention here that I was appointed to this advisory committee by the mayor, and it's my understanding that the East Broadway site was one of the 2 primary sites seriously considered for these housing units. The other, I think, was over by McCormick Park. I'm fairly certain of that. If this site is used for the Missoula College, what happens to the commitment to build housing in this coming year, as nearly a year has already elapsed since the memorandum was signed? As a final thought regarding my comments to you yesterday, please remember there will need to be a full environmental impact statement regardless of whether you place the Missoula College on the East Broadway site or on the South Campus. Thanks.
I'm Cassie Hemphill. I live on Cross Street, which is outside the city limits. I am a new adjunct here at Missoula College. I'm delighted to be here. I'm also a PhD candidate in the School of Forestry and Conservation. But as a professional, I'm a communications professional and work in the areas of public participation and citizen engagement. So my concern, President Engstrom, is about the transparency of the process that is being used. I think if you increase your transparency, you're going to increase trust in the process and in the outcome. Specifically, you've listed 5 criteria. Could you tell us who chose those criteria, on what basis those criteria rose to the top? How are you measuring the criteria? Are those criteria weighted, with some criteria having a heavier weight than others? For example, you mentioned proximity and that we need a quote-unquote reasonable proximity. What is reasonable? Is that a quantifiable term? And perhaps if you explain why proximity is important as both an adjunct and a student, I can understand that. But if I was not, if I was merely a member of the community, I wouldn't understand why that was important. It appears that these are weighted, since you said that Fort Missoula was out because it didn't have that proximity, so it seems like proximity may be a threshold pass, no pass criterion. You also mentioned infrastructure, and I understand that there is no infrastructure at the Fort Missoula site. There's also archaeological resources. So perhaps those are 2 criteria that you have also added to the list, but maybe they're not as important. Certainly, I don't expect you to answer all of that here in this venue, but I would urge you to answer these in writing. The second point is the decision-making process. You said, quote-unquote, we will synthesize. I understood that you are the ultimate decision-maker. I'd like to know who the we are. Who is involved in an advisory capacity? Are these other people that are sitting up here, like Sarah and Brigitte, are they actually in an advisory capacity, or are they simply listening? Who else will be involved, either on your staff, in the community, elected or appointed officials? And then finally, in terms of the scoping, Kevin, how does this meet the requirements under NEPA for scoping? Or are you going to have to do additional scoping that is announced under the formal requirements to meet the requirements of the law? So those are just some issues that have come to mind as I have watched this process for the last few days. I'm concerned that this is not truly a public engagement. It's very much in the model of decide, announce, defend, which of course the public has rejected pretty resoundingly over the last 40 or 50 years. I do think if you increase that transparency, President Engstrom, I do think you will have more trust in the process and more acceptability of your final outcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Huntley.
William, can I try to address a few of those, or quite a few questions there? Thanks very much. Let me just make a few comments in response. First of all, on your question about criteria. This is not a simple decision. And if it were simply one point of criteria that were the deciding factor, it'd be an easy decision. It isn't. And there are lots of things, a lot of things to weigh in a complex decision like this. And so I guess what I want to say is that in a complex decision, you need to integrate and synthesize all of the information that you have at hand and come to what you ultimately think is the best decision based on all of those points. It would be nice if it were, you know, this site has this site doesn't, so that's the site. Well, it's a lot more complicated than that. Proximity is, as I indicated earlier, an important part of the criteria, important aspect of the criteria. And it is that because of two overriding factors. One is the cost-effective delivery of education. And so why choose a site where we have to replicate staff if we can share staff from the main campus to the Missoula College, such as, let's take registrar, for example, or library, for example. Library is a good one, actually. If we have to replicate library staff and library holdings and so on from one place to another, we can do that much more cost effectively if we have a proximal location where we can share staff, share resources and so on. That applies to things like registration, financial aid, advising, all of the student services that we provide our students and that are becoming more and more important today. So proximity is important for that reason, cost-effective delivery. Proximity is also important from the student's education point of view. Again, at least some of the missions of two-year education involve things that relate to the main campus. The transfer mission certainly relates to the main campus. Even some of the developmental things relate to main campus as we share back and forth, share instructors, share classrooms, and so on. And so I think that having students in proximal location to the main campus is better for them as individuals in terms of going back and forth and so on. And the third aspect of proximity is probably, it is a less tangible one, I think, but every bit as important. And that is making these students and faculty members feel like they are indeed part of the University of Montana. This is not a new thing. The Missoula College has been a part of the University of Montana for some 18 or so years administratively. This is not a new structure, and nothing about this location, the siting decision, changes that structure. Missoula College, formerly as the COT, has been a part of the University of Montana administratively for a long time. Dean Good there sits at the table with every other dean at the university. He's involved in the decision-making around academic leadership of the university like any other dean. So that part isn't new. And so to put those students and the faculty and administration out at Fort Missoula, I think sends a message contrary to the philosophy of higher education and the importance of two-year education in today's world. Clearly, that's a bit of a subjective thing, and I know that some people don't agree with that, and they think that a separate location is philosophically the right thing to do. I do not. Who is involved in this decision? The Board of Regents hire the presidents to manage and run the university. So ultimately, this is my decision, subject to approval, as is, I suppose, all of my decisions, as are all of my decisions, by the Board of Regents. The Board of Regents is constitutionally the governance body for higher education. They hire people to run the campuses, and that is my job. It's my job to make decisions about the University of Montana. Certainly, if I were to make a decision that the Regents collectively thought was the wrong decision, they wouldn't approve that decision. I'm quite sure that's the case. I do not have any sense that the Regents feel that either of these locations is the wrong decision. But nonetheless, upon making the decision, I will take it to the board for final approval. So who is in on that decision? As is the case for every major decision at the university, I work with a variety of people at the university, primarily the cabinet, the provost, the vice president for administration and finance. There are, I think, 12 members on the cabinet. We meet on a weekly basis. Many of them are here today listening to these comments and this input as well. We have had, as they, I think, will tell you, some pretty intense discussions on this very topic. A good part of our retreat a month or so ago in the summer was dedicated to this topic. I consult with the cabinet and we work through all manner of decisions, but in the end, I take responsibility for that decision. I take input from all of you. I've had input from the ASUM president and vice president on this. We have talked to the faculty senate a week ago and gave them the opportunity to talk about this. I'm open to input, but in the end, I do need to make the decision and bring it forward to the Board of Regents. Just quickly, additional scoping sessions, yes. Once we decide on the final location, there's no question that we will need to have additional scoping sessions on the details of that particular location. Thank you for the thoughtful questions.
William, I didn't get an answer to my question. Can I reread the question? You want me to go?
Could you come back, please?
Yeah, my statement was fairly long, so I can understand what was lost. I'll just read part of it. It's my understanding that the East Broadway site was one of the 2 primary sites here that was seriously considered for the housing unit. So, if this site is used for the Missoula College, what happens to the commitment to build housing in the coming year? And remember, it was December of last year that we committed to breaking ground within 2 years, and this was signed. I understand it's a memorandum of understanding. It's not a legally binding document, but it's a commitment. So that's my question.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Let me address that. It is true that the East Broadway site that we're looking at was a site that was being considered for a public-private partnership with a housing developer aimed at student housing. And we had quite a few meetings with that particular developer. And in fact, we took a trip with them to see at least 3 other locations on other campuses around this part of the country that they have developed on. And so it was under very serious consideration. We never got to a decision point on it. And there are a number of factors that will play into that ultimate decision as well. If we do not choose the East Broadway site for the Missoula College, I suppose it does bring it back into play for housing development. Whether we go forward with a public-private arrangement on that location is very much an open question. There are questions about the public-private partnership part of it, and there are questions about that location. But we will go forward at some point and make decisions about housing. You are correct that we signed the Quality of Life Initiative, and we are very committed to that. It covers a variety of areas in addition to housing, as you know, Phil. But signing that Quality of Life Initiative was not signing off on any particular site like the East Broadway site. So we'll continue to work in the spirit of that Quality of Life Initiative, moving forward as rapidly as we can on all of those fronts. We're committed to moving on those fronts. But we did not, it doesn't include signing off on any particular site or any particular public-private partnership. But we'll continue working on those. Thank you.
Yes, I can't pass up this opportunity. My name is Pat McDonald. I live out on Canyon River Road, which is a part of the city of Missoula. I was born in Missoula, lived 95% of my life here in Missoula. Loved the university, graduated from the university. My daughter graduated from the university. My son-in-law teaches at the university, and my brother graduated from the university. Lots of tie-ins with the university. I think the university does a wonderful job for Missoula. And President Engstrom, when I heard you talk about being an integral part of the community, I hope you keep that thought up and continue on that. I'm very adverse to the university using the golf course area. And it's too bad that it's termed the golf course area because it kind of limits it in many people's minds to just a golf course. And it's so much more than that. As we all know, the activities that take place there are just, they go on and on. I went and listened the other night to what I thought was a hero of Missoula, who was a veteran of Vietnam and ran a spotter planes over in Vietnam and came back, wrote a book, and where did he have his book signing? At the university golf course. And of course, while you're there, you see friends and friends and friends and people. So it's so much more than just a golf course. So I hate to see that go away. The open space, as you've heard, we paid millions and millions of dollars for open space in Missoula, and now to turn around and, so to speak, take our central park and throw it away or use it for different use is a tough, tough deal. I'm adverse to that for that reason. Secondly, I think it's a real burden you're placing upon the citizens that are living around the golf course. And that's because of the increased traffic that will flow in and out of there. And I know I've listened to your engineers talk about how they're going to do lots of studies and they're going to. But when you get through with all of that, you've got a very limited access coming and going from that university golf course. That Arthur Avenue is 2 lanes, it'll stay 2 lanes forever. Higgins Avenue is 2 lanes, it'll stay 2 lanes forever. And 39th, I think, will probably stay 2 lanes forever. You're not going to change those. So you can have your engineers do all the studying in the world, but basically you've got problems getting in and out of there, which really throws a burden on the citizens that are living around there. And I think that creates some bad feelings, some animosity between the citizens of Missoula and the university. I don't like to see that. I think that, this should be a nice, let's all get along and get it done situation, if at all possible. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tom Roy. I live at 541 Evans in the university area on the corner of Arthur and Evans. I actually hadn't intended to speak, excuse me. I've forgotten this gentleman's name, but I can't hesitate but simply piggyback on what he had to offer. And I will say at the outset, I'm reassured to hear the president say that there will be other scoping sessions, that whatever sites involved, because that has been a concern of mine. Arthur Avenue, let me start over. The primary access to the university from this part of town historically was Maurice Avenue, not Arthur Avenue. Arthur Avenue was never constructed to handle the load of traffic it now handles. The assessment that was done in 2011 by the university with relationship to the biomass fuel project identified Arthur Avenue as a residential street, Arthur neighborhood as a residential neighborhood, and in fact, the assessment concluded that the 3 to 5 heavy vehicles, which would be required to carry the biomass material, should not use Arthur Avenue, that they really should be prohibited from using Arthur Avenue because it is a residential street. Today, according to Professor Garen Smith, who's a chemistry professor at the university, but is also an advisor at ASU in transportation, 412 buses, that includes Mountain Line and primarily ASU buses, use Arthur Avenue. My feeling and the feeling of other residents along Arthur Avenue is that this violates the residential character of Arthur Avenue. Just to give some sense of what I mean by that, the city noise ordinance says that the decibel level, allowable decibel level, maximum allowable decibel level is 60, 55 up to 7, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., and after 7 p.m. it's 50 decibels. Even the newest buses greatly exceed those decibel levels. Now there is an exception in the city ordinance that heavy vehicles can use streets such as Arthur and have 85 decibel levels, but there are exceptions. The notion never was that there'd be 412 buses running up and down the street, the residential street. So my main point here is that I would hope that the university would begin at last to listen to the concerns of those of us who live along streets like Arthur and other streets that might be impacted regardless of where the campus is located. I don't have a particular opinion about the location of the campus, although I must admit I've been driven to oppose the South Campus simply because I've not heard how it is that the university proposes to transport students between that proposed campus and the main university campus. And there already is a serious traffic problem on Arthur. And the rumor is that they'll simply use Arthur increasingly. And in fact, there is also a rumor that Arthur Avenue will become a one-way street one way and Allen will become one way another way. I think the woman who talked about transparency was absolutely right on. I think if the university were more forthcoming and more willing to meet and talk with neighbors about problems that they have known are out there, that we could, as Sue Bradford suggests, finally settle on a location. Thank you.
Can I say something to that? I've heard a number of people say that putting Missoula College at the South Campus is going to increase the commute between the two campuses. I've been commuting as a Missoula College student this is my 4th semester now. I would venture to say that the students that would be commuting from the South Campus to the Mountain Campus are already making that commute. And they're using those buses and they're taking their own vehicles. And all of the traffic that we're so concerned with is already there.
Can I simply respond? And I would agree with you in some measure. But the fact is that the campus...
Mr. Warren, if this is going to go on, could you come to the microphone so that we can get it on tape, please?
Well, I hate to waste people's time for this, but
that's community spirit. Just running to the microphone.
I understand what you're saying, and I would simply say that the university did do a limited environmental assessment in 2008 with respect to the South Campus. And in part of that assessment, they talk about traffic. And at that point in time, and I may be wrong about the base number, but at that point in time, I think they assumed that the base number of students, if the campus were built on the current golf course, would be about 1,000 students. And they did at that point indicate there would be some limited impact on traffic. Of course, now I think the population on the South Campus is what, 2,300 or 2,400, and it will continue to grow, and I hope it does. I have no objection to that, but I think it's more the impact in the future as we go forward as opposed to what's going to, okay?
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
And if I could, let me just emphasize a couple of points. One, we fully understand that we have updating to do with our environmental analysis, and we will do whatever updating is required on either site that we end up choosing in concert with state A&E. I mean, there are requirements for that. We have no intention of skirting those requirements. I mean, we couldn't if we wanted to. There are hard requirements, and so we have every intention of working with state A&E to do whatever environmental analysis and whatever scoping sessions that requires. We will do that. That's totally in the plan. I do want to make a comment about the buses. And Tom, I know that you've had many discussions, and some others in the room, about buses. And I just feel compelled to say that how proud I am of ASUM, one, for running one of the best bus lines in higher education by any student group. I mean, if you think of the rides that are on those buses that are not in individual cars, what a tremendous contribution to the community that is. I mean, if they weren't running that bus line and those people were driving their own individual cars, that would be a big step backwards. ASUM has listened to community concerns to the point where they They, as you know, have bought a brand-new bus that is online now. They have another brand-new bus on order that will be delivered next year about this time. And so, is it a perfect bus line? Of course not. And I do sympathize with those of you who live along those bus routes. But ASUM, I think, is being pretty darn responsible and responsive in trying to address those concerns and doing something very good for this community by running a bus line in the first place. Thank you.
Hello? Sorry. I'm Jay DeBoer. I'm a student here at the MC. I'm taking a 2-year associate's degree in business management. Two main things that I've seen pop up that concern me as a student. With the canyon spot, a good portion of our student body comes from down Bitterroot, which is already a very long drive into Missoula. You add an extra 5 miles across very slick roads in winter conditions. I don't think the canyon spot would be a very good location for driving that far for your classes. As for the, shall we say, East Campus or the Gulf area, my main concern is what about the heavy equipment? The other areas of the 2-year degrees, how will they be incorporated into that? Sure, it's nice to see for our areas for English and technology being represented, but a lot of the areas of growth in our state are in the energy business, and that's going to be out in eastern Montana, and they need to have that accessibility. Myself, I would see 2 campuses as the actual direction that we should go. Not just one large campus at the base of the hill. It centralizes our thinking, it centralizes our development, it centralizes into a very wrong direction for our education. Having it in two different spaces gives us a better chance at a dynamic future. Our campus needs to be grown, as in anybody in any class in either math or science or nursing can tell you. Some of our classrooms run from a standard 65 degrees to a standard 95 degrees. And that's not very conducive to understanding what our instructor's trying to tell us. I appreciate this opportunity to try to expand, and I do understand that you have already your choices to lead and your choices to make. I would like to point out that we as the students will feel that, shall we say, choice directly in either economics or in the output of our education. And I want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate this venue to be able to speak to you guys.
Just as a point of clarification, you talk about 2 sites, 2 campuses, which...
2 campuses. I really think that we should have 2 campuses,
not just
U of M. It also should be U of M and also the Missoula College. I think there should be 2 campuses and 2 separate entities. Myself, I really think that would be the best of both worlds.
So you don't...
But I understand that the world has made its own choices. It has to have a direction. Somebody has to make a choice, whether it's easy or not. Myself, I would say 2 campuses would be better.
I think I understand now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I'd like to make just a point of clarification there. I don't know that you were specifically asking this, but triggered my desire to make this comment. What is now the West Campus with the heavy equipment program and the construction trades and the welding and so on, we are not intending to move that into wherever we put this Missoula College building. That's just not feasible, and we have no intention of doing that in any foreseeable future. At some point, that facility too needs upgrading. There's no question about that, and we hope to be able to do that. But we can't do everything at once, and so we're going to start with this. This is what you would call the academic programs, I guess. This East, what are now on the East Campus, and so that West Campus will remain out there at Fort Missoula for the indefinite future. So I just want people to know that we're not contemplating bringing the tractors and the big semis into either of these locations. Thank you.
So I'm Gigi Whites. I live at 100 Fairway, and I'm glad you mentioned those students out there. I wanted to ask where the culinary program will be for each of these two sites.
Thanks, Gigi. Ultimately, the culinary program will be at the site, whatever site we end up choosing. That's where the culinary program will be. We may not have sufficient resources to do that today. The building construction contemplated on the South Campus at this $32 million price tag is with the assumption that culinary will not move there, because the price tag of the building to accommodate culinary at the South Campus was considerably higher than the $32 million we're talking about here. So the plan at the moment is that culinary would stay where it is until we can go back for another phase or raise money or something like that to bring culinary over. One of the attractions of the East Broadway site is that the price of infrastructure will be considerably less there than it would be on the South Campus. So to put in the road, the water, sewer, and so on into the South Campus that we would need, the architect is telling us is probably on the order of $3+ million, $3 to $4 million. We are trying to see if we did this on the East Broadway site, that might be enough money to build out the culinary wing, maybe not finish it, but at least get it built out. So the movement of the culinary to the rest of the campuses would be accelerated, we think, on the East Broadway site. That's one consideration to make. But we can't guarantee that until we get into the details of the architect's planning and the actual bid process. Good question, though. I mean, ultimately, we want culinary to be with the rest of these programs.
I'd like to share my opinion. I've sat and listened to a number of really wonderful opinions and great questions, and kind of been biting my tongue, wanting everybody else to express their opinion before I express mine as I sit up here. But I think it is important that students are heard, and I am a student of Missoula College, University of Montana. And so my preference is for the South Campus, and I do have some logic behind that. Missoula College students, myself included, have kind of a feeling of segregation, and we've talked about it in a number of different ways here in this forum, but I've heard it in other forums as well. Missoula College students are U of M students, and we don't often feel like it. And I think that putting Missoula College, the majority of Missoula College, I should clarify that. It is sad to see that the industrial arts will still stay out at the fort, but to put the majority of Missoula College students at South Campus and then to have the university built around us will give us a spirit of inclusion. I'm on a mission this year to encourage Missoula College students to get involved. We are represented by the ASUM, we pay these fees, and there's not a lot of cooperation for Missoula College students because we feel excluded. And so being at the South Campus will give us that feeling of inclusion. On the other hand, the East Broadway site, I'm opposed to that because of the implication of segregation. As we've seen on the slides, the East Broadway site will give us a fantastic view of the mountain campus as Missoula College students. But we will still be the kids from the other side of the river. And even with the bridge there, the suspension bridge that we've talked about, we will still be a separate population, even though our numbers are included in the numbers run for the university. And so, in my opinion, as a Missoula College student, I am a proponent of the South Campus. Thank you.
Do you want a response to that?
We have someone.
Hi, my name is Alvin Jessup. I'm a current student here at the MC. And as far as the new location and the design of the campus, was the Americans with Disability Act thought of and considered?
Well, you know, any building that we build, regardless of location, is clearly going to meet ADA accessibility specifications. I mean, we are fully committed to that. I guess what I would ask you to give us some feedback on these two locations with respect to that. Certainly the building itself will be ADA compliant and all of that. If there is a consideration about site location that we need to hear about, I would really appreciate your input there. Is one of these more conducive to ADA accessibility than the other?
Okay, in my opinion, it would be the South Campus.
Would be the preferable one?
Yes.
Okay. Any particular reason for that that you want to share?
Well, I live on campus, and it's closer for me.
Okay.
And it's more convenient for my needs.
Okay.
Whether the person has a disability permanently or temporarily.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful.
Hi, I'm a Missoula College student. I commute the Bitterroot every day. Sorry.
Could you give us your name too, please?
My name is Erin. I commute the Bitterroot every day. I both work and am a student here. And I just wanted to share my preference of the two locations. I prefer the South Campus just because there are a lot of things that we pay for and a lot of things that we miss out on at the main campus that we aren't a part of here. And I'm also worried about the traveling to the Broadway one. If we were to move the campus over there, I don't know how the congestion would be for the students and employees. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. Is the program that you're in here one that isn't available at Bitterroot College down in Hamilton?
I don't know if it is. It's the business management.
Okay. It probably isn't yet. Is that correct, Barry?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
We're working on that, but we're not there yet.
Yeah. So for those of you who may not know, a few years ago, we did start the Bitterroot College program, now the Bitterroot College in Hamilton, as a way of providing two-year educational opportunities to citizens of the Bitterroot Valley. And some 200 or so people are taking advantage of that per semester now. But but the program offerings are still limited there, and so it's too bad that you have to commute all the way up to Missoula, but maybe a few years from now, the next student in business management will be able to do that in Hamilton.
It's always tough to go first. We'd like to go last.
Good afternoon, panel. My name is Mary Lopez. I work here at the College of Technology in the Outreach Department, and I just want to leave everybody, the panelists, the community, the students, the staff, just remind you that first and most of all, we do need a building, we do need the tools, we need the right place, the right tools so that we can continue teaching and delivering great workforce people that all of us use. When we are sick, when we go to the hospitals, and we have somebody holding our hand, a nurse comforting you, or when you are buying or looking for a home, somebody built that house. There is a need, and it makes me sad that in the past there has been a lot of negativity, and people have looked down on us, very nasty and negative comments even in the newspapers. It's as if we, the front, the people in the two-year programs, I'm an alumni, by the way, and we are looked down upon and as if we are not the best. But the reality is the majority of the workforce people are people that come out of the two-year programs. So I just want you to remember that if you want somebody qualified and competent to provide you the best service, we need a good school, we need the tools, and we need to continue having the support of the staff, the students, and the teachers, so that we can provide great education to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a great way to end this forum. President Engstrom, you have a complex, important decision to make that will affect this community for a long time. And I appreciate the fact that folks have come out today to speak with you and with the listeners and with each other about this issue. Whichever choice is made, as you heard, there will be further scoping sessions. I want to thank you for your civility today and the fact that we could come together and talk about this issue in the manner that we did. I'm very proud of us all. Thank you.